The snow keeps moving. The sleigh keeps pulling. And behind it all, the future of the Clydesdale breed is being written.
The horse, the heavy horse, Scotland's pride and joy, the Clydesdale.
Every breeder has a prefix. So the prefix on a horse usually identifies what farm or ranch the horse was born at. Our prefix is Far Forest, which comes from Fernwald, which is the town in Germany that I am from and where my dad and I started breeding horses 30 years ago in 1996. Did we get a package?
Yes, it's over right there by the coconut.
Oh, cool. That's the new horse family tree. I made this family tree because I feel like I had all this pedigree and the relationships between all of our 18 horses in my head, and I knew, for example, Whimsy's mother is also the grandmother of Yellowstone and things like that. But it was really hard, I think, for anybody to understand whenever I was trying to explain it. So I wanted to come up with a really expansive family tree that has all our 18 horses on it and how they are eventually somehow related. Because the gene pool in the Clydesdales is extremely small, especially in the 70s and 60s. There were not a lot of individuals left, so everything that we have today in the Clydesdale population derives from a kind of a bottleneck in the population. Cool, I'm excited to hang it up.
I'm gonna need a bigger barn.
The family tree, the horses that are on the very top go back to the late 70s or early 80s. And then everything in between, obviously, is in these 40 to 50 years in between. Making the family tree was a little winter project, when we come in earlier in the evening because the daylight's gone, and then I took some time on the computer to start creating these relationships. So I started with our half-siblings that we have. For example, Aurora, Joan, and Prine are half-siblings. Then Marga and Takori are half-siblings. And then Sakura, Whimsy, and Vendetta are half-siblings. And then I kind of went up from there. My favorite thing about the family tree is how you can really trace back lines, and you can pretty much find on any horses you pick somehow where they connect in a common ancestor.
Yeah, we have 4 mares pregnant. Helena is having the first baby. She's due around like Valentine's Day. Then Sakura is due around the 9th of March. And then Takori is due like the 23rd or so of March. And then Vendetta is due at the end of May. Pendleton also has 2 children on the way. And he had a rough start at life. His mommy died when he was just 6 days old, and we had to take care of him around the clock, and it's really cool to see him grow up and be able to have children of his own.
Experiencing all the good sides of breeding, that's obviously what we all are here for and what we love, and why probably every breeder that breeds Clydesdales or any type of horses lives for. I also get very kind of nervous and a little stressed out when the births are coming up, and I'm trying to just optimize everything so that things go well. Still, the good times and the successful times you have a live foal outweigh the bad times. And fortunately, there are still more times when everything goes well versus the times that it doesn't go well. I think it's just a very interesting part of kind of creating new life and having horses that you like a lot, their specific looks or traits, and then you try to make it better or improve it, or have certain genetic markers, phenotypes that you want to enhance. And ultimately, I think every horse breeder, no matter what breed, probably thrives for breeding, trying to breed the perfect horse in their eyes, in their personal views. I think it is important to keep this breed alive, and the Clydesdales have a long history and heritage behind them. They are very, unique and special breed. There are not a lot of Clydesdales left in the world. If you really think about it and compare it to some other endangered species, for example, there is more grizzly bears in the world than Clydesdales. There's more giraffes in the world than Clydesdales. And when you really think about that, that puts it into perspective how important it is to keep this breed alive. And this breed and other heavy horse breeds really helped build humanity and the modern world to what it is today. There's a lot that humanity kind of almost owes to these horses to keep them alive. It doesn't go well all the time. Like during these 30 years of breeding, we probably had, I would say, about 6 or 7 times where it really did not go well.
Sometimes, after months of planning, preparing, and nurturing a birth, doesn't go as planned. That was the case with our foal, Bambi.
It's hyperlaxity of the flexor tendons of the front legs, but in addition, the entire bone structure of the front legs were bent in the wrong way as well. So it's not only hyperlaxity, but also on a bone level, there was some deformity already. It's not unusual that the tendons are a little bit lax in the first couple days, maybe 3 days, especially in Clydesdales and Shire horses and draft horse breeds. But typically they can stand up. They may, the fetlock may touch the ground for a while, but ultimately they strengthen, stretch, and stretch out and are fine. But with Bambi, we realized she wasn't even able to stand on these feet because it basically looked like skis going up. And she was somewhat strong enough to kind of lift herself up, but she was definitely not high enough to reach the udder. So then the first few days, we literally lifted the whole foal up to the udder so that she could drink. And the crazy part about it was that she had the will to live and to drink, and as soon as you lifted her up, she was drinking normally and fine and a lot of milk, and that really made this so hard to not put her down right in the beginning, because we all felt like, okay, she has the will to live, she's a fighter, she wants to be here. So let's research what this condition is, if anybody has done this before, and if we have a chance to correct the front legs in a way that she could live a normal life. So that's why within the first day we made that decision to actually give it a try. It was really hard to actually find people that could help us because so I'm a veterinarian, I work in the veterinary industry. I'm very well connected to a lot of large hospitals that we know some specialists at and stuff. And I talked to many of them, and pretty much everybody gave me the same answer, that this is a very rare condition. Even very seasoned and experienced people have not seen this very often, maybe once or two times in their career. And everybody told me that they don't know if it's going to work or not. We may have a chance, but nobody was able to give us a recipe of, hey, do this, follow that, and it's going to be fine. So that was really hard. So I ultimately connected to the veterinarian that developed the red boots. He's from Argentina, and I talked to him a lot on the phone, sent him videos, sent him photos, and then we kind of modified the red boots in a way that we, thought or hoped it would work best, since the red boots are developed for a condition that is actually contracted tendons, where you're trying to stretch out the leg in the other way. So we did some modifications on the red boots in order to keep the legs straight and give Bambi the ability to stand in the red boots almost like in a cast. And it did work for a while. She was able to get up with them, walk around a little bit, actually drink by herself, and it felt like the right thing to do. Working with a foal like that is extremely exhausting and mentally draining, and you operate on minimal amounts of sleep. I still have my normal job in the veterinary industry that I'm doing every day during the day. So most of the time during the day, Camber, Brandon, and our other wranglers were taking care of Bambi and making sure that she got up in time. And then at nighttime, when they were gone, then I took over and made sure that she drank every hour, she got up in time, she wasn't laying on one side too long on the other side. We did rep her legs to kind of force them somewhat in the right direction and work against this laxity on the tendons. And then also make sure that she wouldn't get pressure points on the legs. So it's basically a 24-hour time commitment. And then with emotional up and downs of it working or not working. And I almost lost my mind during that time. I was going back and forth between sadness, but also like anger. Why is this cute little being that wants to be here doing this to me, and I'm almost losing my mind? So it was hard. It was hard on me, and it was hard on everybody around here. Destiny was also not all right after the birth, so she retained her placenta. Usually the placenta needs to come out within about 3 hours after the birth. Sometimes it takes a bit longer, especially in draft horses, in my experience. But really at 4 to 6 hours, you really need to get that out of there. And she had it retained for a long time. So we were flushing out the uterus, we were giving her oxytocin to kind of re-engage labor in order for the mare to push it out. We were doing all kinds of things to try to get this placenta out. And ultimately, once we got it out, almost 24 hours later, it looked completely different than it should. It was like very dilapidated. It had like almost like some spots on it that looked like cottage cheese and smelled really bad. So there was definitely something going on in utero before Bambi was born, that the placenta was not right. And there is some scientific research about placentitis and how it changes the flow of nutrients to the baby that could cause things like laxity and deformities and things like that. So that is most likely the cause. So we were trying to find a balance when treating Bambi, to keep her fevers down, to treat any like pressure points that may have gotten infected with antibiotics, and also still considering that a newborn foal is very sensitive to medication, as far as the kidney function, but also for stomach ulcers. Any foals that undergo stress or treatment in the very early days and weeks of their lives usually develop stomach ulcers, and then that leads to other issues like not having an appetite, not drinking enough, ultimately also getting fevers and stuff like that. So we were trying as good as we could to find a balance between the use of medication to keep fevers down and infections low, but also trying not to overuse drugs in order to preserve stomach and kidney health, which is really tough to do. So she was on a lot of medication. We were always worried about kidney function, dehydration, and things like that, especially when it got warmer towards the end of May. But ultimately we had to like find a balance. So it was very difficult so the red boots worked okay for a while, that she could stand on it, walk around, but ultimately, especially as it got warmer, I think the red boots covering both her front legs created a lot of heat stress. And after having them, we kind of put them on for a couple hours, took them off for a few hours, put them back on. But ultimately, she got super hot during wearing these boots, because they need to be padded with cotton and wraps, and the red boots go on the outside. So it really creates a lot of heat stress on those legs and on the body. Ultimately, she also grew quite a bit. So we got to the point where we decided not to use the red boots anymore, but she was still obviously not standing on her feet properly. So then we decided to switch to the glue shoes. So we glued shoes on the front feet, and we created an extension to the back of the shoe that was extremely long, longer than I've ever used or seen it before. So I used some 2-component glue to kind of create this extremely long extension, so that when she lands on her feet, she had basically no choice than using it in the proper way. And that worked for a while, quite a few days actually. But one of the complications that happened then is that the tendons that run on the front of her legs got so much tension that some of those tendons kind of snapped. And that, I think, created a pain point for her, that she was actually trying to avoid this stretching of the front side of her legs. And then she deliberately threw her front leg when walking with these extensions so far forward that she could avoid putting the foot on the ground flat. And she was kind of basically ramming the heel of this extension back into the ground to not put any stretching on the front of her legs. And that got me to a point where I'm like, I don't know anymore how else we can help you. So either you need to comply in a way and use your feet the way they are designed to, or it's just not going to work. And then once the pressure points on her fetlocks that she inevitably, was using on the ground, and we wrapped it as good as we can, but there's still a lot of pressure, especially as she was growing, on those tendons and tendon sheets, that ultimately one of the pressure points kind of bursted open, and the necrotic tissue basically opened up her fetlock joint. And that was one of the points where it was pretty clear that it probably wouldn't go very much longer. To me, it was inevitable that this is not going to work, because an infected joint in a foal like that is really hard to treat. And also, if she keeps standing on the pressure point that is already open, it wouldn't be able to heal. So at that point, after it was already like 7 weeks in, we were all exhausted. Probably Bambi was exhausted. Destiny had started to kind of care less about her. We created a little pasture next to the other horses out there, and Destiny was pretty much always just standing on the fence, trying to be as close as possible to her friends and paying less and less attention actually to her baby. I think that was the moment where we all realized that Destiny had kind of given up on her. And from a medical perspective, the condition was unfixable. And then the most difficult part was to really let her go and inject the medication and realize that this is not reversible. But if we do this now, it's going to be over.
We definitely gave Bambi her best chance. Sometimes all bursts don't go as planned, and we had to put her down.
Not everything works out the way you hope it to, and you just got to be thankful for the time that you did get to spend with them while they were here.
Letting go is never easy, but it's the most humane thing we can do. Destiny rejoined the herd, and life, as hard as it is, continues forward. We don't breed Clydesdales for tradition alone. We breed them for the future, for legacy, for a breed that once helped build this country and now depends on us to survive. Clydesdales are more than horses. To breed them is to protect something rare, a living piece of who we've been and who we still want to be. Every breeding season carries promise and uncertainty. Not every story ends the way you hope. But every foal reminds you why this work matters. Lineages, bloodlines, possibility. Breeding Clydesdales means carrying history forward, one careful decision, one new life at a time.